Ang utang is something you owe to another person. It is an obligation kaya kailangan bayaran. Pero there is what is called good debt. Debt can be used for good things. Paano ginagamit na maganda ang utang? Pag mahirap lang kayo, you can borrow money for education. Good debt is also to buy a house. Good debt can be used for business expansion. So debt is good when you are buying appreciating asset. Ano appreciating asset? Yung bang lumalaki yung value niya, but debt can also be used in a wrong way. It can be very bad for you. Bad debt is when you live beyond your means. And I have a concern sa mga bata ngayon. Uutang kayo for travel. Okay? Uutang kayo kasi kakain kayo sa labas and you cannot afford, so uutang kayo. Sometimes you overdraw from your credit card, hindi lumaki yung kinain nyo, nawalan pa kayo ng 3% a month. So debt is bad when you live beyond your means. Our topic will be very interesting and very controversial. Yung aking linabas na basically creating wealth has been receiving a lot of good and negative feedback sa Facebook. Siguro talagang problema tong utang or hindi natin naintindihan. As I promise, ang pag-uusapan natin is this issue on how to get out of debt. Paano tayo makakalabas sa utang? I don't know why you are with me. Ang tanong ko, bakit ba kayo andito ngayon? We'll talk about getting out of debt. So, ang una kong tanong sa inyo, why do you want to get out of debt? Naintindihan ba niyo ako? Why do you want to get out of debt? Today, doon sa Facebook, ang daming nagre-react. Sabi, hindi naman masama umutang, hindi naman problema yun. Totoo, and I agree. I agree kasi to borrow money is not a sin. Ayusin natin to ha. Pag merong taong umutang, don't judge them because borrowing money is not a sin. In fact, during the time nila Abraham, nila Moses, meron tinatawag na money lender. So itong mga nagpapautang, umuutang, has been there for a long time. So if debt is not a sin, why are you so concerned about getting out of your debt? Ako, this is what I discovered. We'll talk more about debt ngayon, utang, para mas maintindihan natin paano makalabas sa utang. I said debt is not a sin, but debt can be a manifestation of sin if used in the wrong way. I will explain that mamaya. Ulitin ko ha. Sabi ko kanina, debt is not a sin, but debt can be a manifestation of sin when used wrongly. Ano ibig ko sabihin? I-review muna natin anong utang. I guess today, no, nahirapan ang tao mag-deal with utang kasi hindi talaga natin siya naintindihan. So first of all, let me define debt, no. Ang utang is an amount you owe to another person. It is an obligation. Ulitin ko ha, ang utang is something you owe to another person. It is an obligation kaya kailangan bayaran. Pero there is what is called good debt. Debt can be used for good things. Paano ginagamit na maganda ang utang? Pag mahirap lang kayo, you can borrow money for education. Bakit? Because later naman, mababayaran yan pag nakapagtrabaho ka. Good debt is also to buy a house. If you ask me whether to rent or buy a house, I tell you, umutang ka ng bahay because eventually mapupunta sa'yo yan. And I encourage people to maximize your benefits sa pag-ibig. So, sana yung mga nag-react sa akin na nagagalit sila pag sabi kong utang will make you poor, hindi lahat ng utang will make you poor. Buying a house is better than renting a house because eventually babalik sa'yo yun. Or eventually, you will own that. Para sa akin, good debt can be used for business expansion. I'd like to make something very clear. Utang can be used for business expansion. I want you to take note of that. Kasi mamaya sasabihin ko kayo that there's a form of debt sa negosyo that can be very bad. So debt is good when you are buying appreciating asset. Ano appreciating asset? Yung bang lumalaki yung value niya, Ako 'pag merong lupa ta's kaya kong bayaran ng utang, I will buy that. The reason is land appreciates over time. When something appreciates over time, mas malaki yung pag-increase ng value niya kaysa sa interest niya, go ahead. I will tell you, go ahead. Okay? Now, why do I say I like buying a house sa utang? Kasi supposing sabi mo naipit na ako, uy, parang hindi ko na ata kaya ituloy yun. You can sell that house, kumita ka pa. Okay? Merong tinatawag na depreciating asset. Pag binenta mo, nawalan ka ng pera. I'll explain that mamaya. But that can also be used in a wrong way. It can be very bad for you. Bad debt is when you live beyond your means. And I have a concern sa mga bata ngayon. Uutang kayo for travel. Okay? Uutang kayo kasi kakain kayo sa labas and you cannot afford, so uutang kayo. Sometimes you overdraw from your credit card. Alam ba niyo magkano interest sa credit card? It's 3%. Hindi lumaki yung kinain niyo, nawalan pa kayo ng 3% a month. So debt is bad when you live beyond your means. Debt is also bad when you use it for speculative investment. Anong speculative investment? You know, there was a time, I think last year, no? Grabe ang akyat ng Bitcoin. And talagang sumisipa siya. So I know some people who borrowed money to invest sa Bitcoin. And then mamaya bumagsak na siya. So hindi ka lang napautang, nawalan pa ng value yung pera mo. And then I heard of this company, it's a big multinational corporation. They brought in a financial expert and the expert talked about stocks and how stocks go up. Alam mo ginawa ng mga tao? They borrowed money to put in stocks. Now, if the stock market is good, talagang malaki ang akyat niya. Pero mamaya babagsak na naman siya. So do not borrow money when you're speculating. Okay? When you're investing, do not borrow money. And then look at the slide. I said, that is bad when you are using it for starting a business. Paano nangyari yun? Sabi ko kanina, that is good when you are expanding a business, but it is bad when you are starting a business. Paano nangyari yun? Hintayin nyo lang ako, I will explain that. So that is bad when you are buying depreciating assets. Nawawala yung value. Let me share with you a story. I don't normally borrow, but I agree that you can borrow certain things pag sa negosyo, pag may magbabayad. But anyway, there was one time when we started to expand the vegetable business namin when we were selling to McDonald's. This was in 2000 to 2010. And then around 2004 ata yon, lumapit sa akin ng KFC. Sabi nila, we'd also like to buy lettuce. However, gusto nila na bilisan ko yung production. And in order to do that, I have to buy a tractor. Because may commitment sa KFC, sabi ko, ito pwede itong utangin kasi may magbabayad eh. However, God was good enough to be able to show me na, uy, meron pala kaming ipon. We bought the tractor for 1.4 million. Nice, no? Total naman, may magbabayad na negosyo. Pero later, na-notice ko, pag naplatan yung traktor, ibababa ko yung malaking gulong sa Cagayan. Pag nasira siya, kukuha ko sa Cagayan, which is 2 hours away, ng technician, iakyat ko siya sa farm. Tapos yung value ng traktor bumabagsak over time. So ginawa ko, binenta ko yung traktor ko. Tapos bumalik kami sa Kalabaw. Eh, ng tao ko magaling maggamit ng kalabaw. Gusto ko yung kalabaw, bakit? Yung kalabaw appreciating asset yun, eh. What do I mean? After 1 year, nanganak yung kalabaw ko, may 2 na akong kalabaw. 'Pag nagkasakit yung kalabaw ko, injectionan ko, okay na siya. Tapos later dumadami siya, 'pag matanda na siya ibenta ko siya. Uy, yung kalabaw ko appreciating asset, yung tractor ko depreciating asset. Do you understand what I'm telling you? However, okay rin bumili ako ng tractor because may magbabayad ng value niya. Let me show you how debt can be used wrongly and how debt can be used in the proper way. The same concept, pwede mong ikasira. What do I mean? Did you buy a car with your own money? Meaning personal na kotse, hindi kotse ng kumpanya. So I always teach against buying cars with your own personal money. Bakit? Kasi kukunan mo yung sweldo mo ng pera and hindi kumikita yon. Bumili ka ng kotse using your personal money. Pag nasa Manila ka, maghahanap ka ng parking, gasolina mo, yung kotse mo nakaparada, pero may kotse ka. Okay? Some people would even argue with me, sabi niya, kasi naman baka dong mas pareho lang pag namasahe sila. I don't think the cost of a car will be the same pag namasahe ka. But you're actually losing money, your personal money na dapat mong iniipon. But let me say this, it is not wrong to buy a car for yourself. Kaso lang, yung value ng kotse nagdi-depreciate. After a while, hindi mo siya pwede ibenta. Pag ayaw mo na, nawalan ka ng value, hindi katulad ng bahay at saka lupa. But if the company buys a car for you, go ahead. May magbabayad eh. Now, yung kumpanya may kinikita para bayaran yung kotse na yon. So walang nawala sa'yo na preserve mo yung sweldo mo. Kami sa negosyo, I will buy a car maski utangin ko siya. Okay, bakit? It's an operating cost. Bibili lang ako ng kotse pag merong isang income na magbabayad doon sa hulugan. Yun, walang nawawala sa'yo kasi may nagge-generate. Pero pag ginamit mo yung personal na pera mo para bumili ng kotse, nawalan ka. And then pag ayaw mo na, sabihin mo na, ayoko na sir, ayoko na, benta ko na. You can never recover the money you put in. Lugi ka na. Okay? So, personal money to buy a car is a depreciating asset. Company bought car is the company expense and they will generate income to pay for that. So, walang problema yan. Pag umutang ka to be able to expand a business, okay yan. Okay? Now, let me say this. I will not borrow to invest in my business to be speculative. Meaning, baka pag lumaki yung negosyo ko, maraming darating. Hindi ako ganon. I will borrow money pag meron akong order na hindi ko ma-meet. Since hindi ko siya ma-meet, hihiram ako ng pera so that I can meet that order. Katulad na lang sinabi ko sa inyo, dumating ang KFC, sabi sa akin ng KFC, bibili rin kami ng gulay, and sabi ko, I needed a tractor, so I can actually borrow that amount kasi magbabayad ng KFC sa akin, mabuti lang meron kaming ipon. Pero hindi problema yon because may magbabayad doon sa utang. Ang problema is when you borrow money to start a business. Yan, that is dangerous. Now, why am I saying that? Kasi hindi ka pa sigurado kung kikita yung negosyo mo. While you may have a good idea, you see when you're starting a business, maraming bagay na hindi mo nakikita. It's a very complicated situation. Yung produkto mo may not be accepted immediately. So minsan matagal pa bago maka-generate siya ng proper profit. Yung kinikita mo when you're starting up a business is something you must flow in back to the business so that it can grow. So ibig sabihin, when you're starting a business, wala kang kita pangbili ng mga bagay na hindi mo kailangan. So it's very dangerous to start a business on a loan. Kaya nga, in one of my posts, I said, Mark Cuban said, you are a moron if you start a business with a loan. Bakit? Kasi hindi sigurado na may pambayad ka. However, when the business has momentum, okay, like for example, today, I'll be very honest with you. Wala nang Monterey. So we grow our pigs on our own. And we have been doing this for the past 2 years. And our vehicles are very, very old. Parati nang sira. Today, we are buying some vehicle on loan, meaning car loan. Bakit? Kasi meron na kaming income, meron na kaming regular income na pangbayad doon. Do you understand what I'm telling you? When we were starting, tiniis namin yung lumang sasakyan. Now that we're getting momentum, meron na kaming extra na pera, bumibili kami ng kotse or truck because we need to sustain the operation. I hope maintindihan yon. So, ulitin ko ha, There is nothing wrong with borrowing money. But when used wrongly, it could really make you poor and make your life difficult. So siguro may mga negosyante sa inyo dito, ano sabi niya, nakautang na ako eh. Alam mo, during the pandemic, mayroon tumawag sa akin, was asking help. Sabi niya, during the pandemic, they saw this opportunity na maganda. So in order to take advantage of the opportunity, startup ito this lady agreed to borrow at a rate of 5% a month. Do you understand ano ibig sabihin nun? That's a 60% interest rate on the money per year. Sabi ko sa kanya, no business will generate 60% in profit. Okay? Most business will generate profit mga 10 to 30%. 30% is amazing already. And so talagang struggle yung negosyo niya. Because startup and then humiram ng pera. So, even though sabi ko sa inyo kanina, debt is not a sin. On the other hand, I realized debt can be a manifestation of a sin when used wrongly. What sin is this? When I'm talking about the sin, I'm talking about the Ten Commandments. Sabi ng Exodus chapter 20 verse 17, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, anong connection ng debt sa covetousness? Many people today uutang because nainggit sila sa kapitbahay nila. The meaning, you're not ready to have them, pero nainggit ka, bumili ka. Like for example, I don't know kung meron sa inyo na sa insurance industry or nasa networking. Di ba you notice when they invite people, they will show off all their vehicles, sabihin kaya mong bilhin to. Ikaw naman, kapapasok mo pa lang, bumili ka ng sasakyan maski hindi mo kaya. In fact, I saw this in the internet. There was this lady na kasama siya sa isang networking business. Kumita siya that year ng 800,000. Nice, no? So after a year, she bought a Ford Mustang worth 4 million pesos. Okay ba yon? Di ba? Kailangan ba talaga niya ng Mustang? Pwede naman Wigo, di ba? Kaso kailangan daw nila mukha silang patay na. Nainggit eh. Now, kumita siya that year 800,000. Sigurado ba yung kita niya next year 800,000 din or 1 million? Posible, posibleng hindi. So many of us get into debt because nainggit tayo. Covetousness. Now, what is covetousness? According to the dictionary, to covet is a Latin word from okay? To desire something that belongs to another. Kayo ba, nainggit kayo sa kapitbahay nyo? No, today, no, mga bata, may FOMO na, may YOLO pa, nainggit kayo, gusto nyong gawin yung ginagawa nila. Now, why did God specifically teach against covetousness? What is wrong ba with wanting what the other people have? Ako, I have been trying to study that. What's wrong ba with wanting what other people have? If you have been following me, you know that I always teach about the parable of the talent. Let me show you something you need to understand about the parable of the talent. Sabi ng Matthew chapter 25:14, for it is just like a man about to go on a journey who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. Verse 15 says, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his own ability. Why is it wrong to desire what someone else have? Because it is not something that God wants for you. Ibig sabihin, wala ka pang ability nun. Masama ba mag-desire ng Ford Mustang? Hindi. Hindi siya masama. In fact, kung pwede lang, I hope you all have your own Ford Mustang. Walang problema. Pero in the proper time. In the proper time, and then when you have grown what you have already. You see, I'm from Bukidnon. I'm a farmer. Sometimes nainggit ako ng tao sa Manila. Nakatira sila sa Ayala, Alabang. And ang gaganda ng kotse nila. Is it wrong for me to desire what they have? The answer is yes. Bakit? Because God has given me a good life in Bukidnon eh. I do not have the money they have. I don't have that. But God has given me a better life. What do I mean? In Manila, when you play golf, today narinig ko ang presyo ng isang laro sa golf course ay Southwoods. It's a course dyan sa may Laguna, 7,000 pesos. Dito sa Bukidnon, it's 1,000 pesos. And then I'm a member of Del Monte Golf Course. Del Monte Golf Course, in a year, I pay 30,000 pesos, 2,500 pesos a month, and play as much as you want. Naintindihan mo yung gaano kamura? Okay? Oftentimes, we see the good in others and fail to see the good in our situation. Never desire what other people have because that is not something God wants for you at this time. Now, anong gagawin natin? Supposing I want them. Walang problema. Yung first slave, yung binigyan ng 5, pinadami niya. Yung binigyan ng 2, pinadami niya. Nung bumalik yung master, sinusoli nila yung kinita nila. Nagdoble ha? Nagdoble pareho. Look at what the master said in Matthew 25:21. His master said, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." What do I want you to see? When you have learned to grow what you have already, God will give you more. Look at this verse. Did God take back what they returned? Sinoli nila, di ba? Did God say, "O sige, akin na yan. Ito na uli yung portion mo." You will notice in this verse, dinagdagan pa ni God. God wants to bless all of you. Kaso gusto niya yung tama. Meaning, gumastos tayo sa kinita natin. Hindi sa inutang natin. I'll explain to you why that's complicated. And then there's this third slave, di ba? The third slave did not use what God gave him. So, anong ginawa anong master? Binigay sa iba, kinuha, binigay sa iba. Now, yung third slave, hindi lang niya ginamit. Malala yung umuutang beyond what they have. Because the one who borrows unnecessarily is taking a responsibility God did not want him to have. Bakit? Because he does not have the matching ability. The reason today I do not want what other people have is because I do not have the ability to take care of what God has entrusted to them. If you only learn to be happy with what you have and ang goal nyo is padamihin siya, God will give you what you want. So utang is not a means to getting what we want. Utang is actually taking on a responsibility that we should not have. Kaya tayo napapahamak. Have you heard of this? Kung nagbabasa kayo ng mga business book or maybe you've been to business school, ang turo sa business school, leverage. Use other people's money. Okay? Ako, I teach against that. Bakit? Baka wala ka pang ability. Ginamit mo yung pera ng ibang tao, wala ka pang ability, mawawala yan. Kaya nga, I am against taking a loan when you're starting a business. Do you watch Shark Tank? You notice they will never invest in a startup. Oftentimes, they will test the track record. Okay? Pag maganda yung track record ng 2 years, kumita ng konti, maski maliit lang, they will invest. Kasi may track record na. They will not invest in an idea kasi hindi sigurado. Now, pag umutang ka naman, you are taking on a responsibility na baka wala kang abilidad. And then look at what the parable of the talent concludes. Sabi ng Matthew 25:29, "For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away." Friends, you know the reason I teach what I teach is I'd like to see all Filipinos live fruitful lives. And oftentimes mali. We are taught to borrow money na hindi natin kaya. You are encouraged to do YOLO and FOMO maski wala kayong pera. So you are actually putting yourself in a position of failure. Kasi kala natin utang will speed up the good future. It will not. It will just destroy you. Now, why am I against utang? Because of what Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 says. Sabi niya, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower becomes a lender's slave. And totoo ito. Pag meron kayong utang, you are at the mercy of the one na inuutangan nyo. Even today. Somebody made a comment in one of my blogs, no? Sabi ko sa kanya, when your boss gets angry, do not quit. Di ba? Kasi that's actually a biblical verse sa Ecclesiastes. But anyway, may nagsabi doon, sabi niya, I want to quit. I don't like my boss. I don't like the company, but I cannot. Because may utang ako, I am a slave to this company. I said, you're not a slave to the company. You're a slave to your debt. Kaya hindi ka makaalis kasi may utang ka. So your options are very limited kasi may utang ka. Utang actually makes you a slave of your situation. Maski ayaw mo na sa sitwasyon mo, you have to stay. Kasi may utang ka eh. Okay? I will be honest with you. Today, we just applied for an auto loan and a loan for a truck because we need it in business. Ang negosyo ang magbabayad. Now, pag ayaw ko na, for suppose hindi kami isoli ko. Tapos na kami, negosyo ang nawalan. Okay? So sinasabi ko, hindi masama ang utang pag tama ang gamit when you do not become a slave. So now I'd like to teach you how to get out of debt.